I'm Arthur, 63, male. I am a retired master carpenter living in the suburbs of Seattle. I spent 40 years shaping wood into homes, furniture, and heirlooms, but now I live or lived in the very house I built with my own two hands, sharing it with my son and his wife. Here is the brutal truth of my life right now. I laid down on an operating table and let a surgeon cut me open to give my only son a kidney because he was dying. I saved his life. 3 days after we were discharged. While my stitches were still fresh and bleeding, he looked me in the eye and told me I was no longer welcome in my own home. I thought I was saving my family, but I was actually signing my own death warrant. But there was one thing David forgot, a conversation I had with the surgeon that changed everything. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The house on Elm Street wasn't just a structure of timber and drywall, it was my autobiography. I could walk through the hallway in the pitch black of night and know exactly which floorboard would creak near the linen closet. I knew that the mahogany banister on the staircase was sanded down by my hands for 3 weeks straight until it felt like satin. I built this place 30 years ago, back when my wife, Martha, was still alive, and back when my son, David, was just a toddler stumbling around with plastic tools in his hands. When Martha passed away 5 years ago, the silence in the house became deafening. It was too big for one old carpenter. That was around the same time David, my 34-year-old son, and his wife, Jessica, were complaining about their cramped apartment downtown. David was a real estate agent who was between big breaks, and Jessica was trying to launch a career as a lifestyle influencer, which apparently required a better aesthetic than a one-bedroom rental could provide. It seemed like the perfect solution. I invited them to move in. I gave them the master suite, the one with the bay window overlooking the garden Martha had planted, and I moved into the smaller guest room on the ground floor. I told myself it was better this way. A house needs life, it needs noise, and frankly, I needed my son. For the first year, things were tolerable. There were friction points, of course. Jessica didn't like my old recliner in the living room because it clashed with the vibe, and David often forgot that I wasn't just a roommate but his father. But we managed. I paid the utilities, handled the repairs, and kept to myself. Then came the diagnosis. It started with David complaining of fatigue. He was sleeping 14 hours a day and still waking up exhausted. Then came the swelling in his ankles, the loss of appetite, and the pale, grayish cast to his skin. I remember the day he collapsed in the kitchen. He dropped a glass of water, and when he bent down to pick it up, he just didn't get back up. The ambulance ride was a blur of flashing lights and sirens. Jessica was in the front seat with the driver, texting furiously, updating her followers. I later learned while I sat in the back holding my son's cold hand. The doctors at St. Jude's were efficient and grim. End-stage renal disease. His kidneys were failing rapidly. Without a transplant, he would be tethered to a dialysis machine for the rest of his short life, and even that was a temporary fix. His quality of life would plummet. His career, his energy, his future, it was all evaporating. We need to find a donor, Dr. Bennett, the head of transplant surgery, told us in the sterile consultation room. He was a man of my generation, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much bad news. The waiting list for a cadaver kidney is 3 to 5 years. David doesn't have that kind of time to waste. We tested Jessica first. She made a big show of it, posting a photo of her bandaged arm on Instagram with the caption, "Doing whatever it takes for my love, Faye Hero wife." But privately she seemed relieved when the results came back. She wasn't a match. "It's my blood type," she told me in the hospital cafeteria, poking at a salad. "It's a shame. I really wanted to do it." Her eyes didn't match her words. She was terrified of the scar, terrified of the recovery. I didn't blame her for the fear, but I hated the performance. That left me. I was 63. I had high blood pressure controlled by medication, and my joints ached when it rained. I wasn't the ideal candidate, but I was his father. "I want to get tested," I told Dr. Bennett the next morning. The process was grueling. Weeks of blood draws, tissue typing, psychological evaluations, and stress tests. I walked on treadmills until my lungs burned. I peed into jugs for 24 hours. I sat in claustrophobic MRI tubes. Every step of the way, I prayed, "Let me be the one. Don't let my boy die." When the call came, I was in my workshop in the garage, sanding down a vintage chair I was restoring. "Dr." Bennett's voice was calm. "Arthur, you're a match. A near-perfect match. But I need to be real with you. At your age, the recovery will be brutal. You're looking at months of pain, fatigue, and potential complications. Are you sure you want to do this?" I didn't hesitate. Not for a second. When can we schedule it? That night, I cooked a celebratory dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, all of David's favorites. The mood in the house shifted instantly. For months, the air had been thick with the smell of sickness and fear. Now there was hope. David cried. He actually wept at the dinner table. He stood up, walked around the table, and hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Dad, you're saving my life. He sobbed into my shoulder. I don't know how I can ever repay you. I promise I'm going to make this count. I'm going to take care of you forever. Jessica was beaming, recording the moment on her phone. This is a miracle, she said, panning the camera to her tear-streaked face. Family is everything. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Those 3 weeks were the best we had been in years. David was attentive. He asked about my day. He sat in the workshop with me, watching me work, talking about the future. He talked about how, once he was well, he was going to ramp up his real estate business. He talked about maybe having kids with Jessica. You'll be the best grandpa, Dad, he said one rainy afternoon. We'll build them a treehouse together. I clung to those words. I wrapped myself in them like a warm blanket. They were the fuel I needed to face the operating room. 2 days before the surgery, Marcus came over. Marcus was my oldest friend, a retired paralegal who knew the law better than most lawyers. He was a cynic by nature, the complete opposite of my optimistic outlook. We sat on the back porch, drinking iced tea. You sure about this, Artie? Marcus asked, eyeing David through the sliding glass door. David was inside, laughing at something on the TV. He's my son, Marcus. What else am I going to do? I know, Marcus grunted. It's a big ask. And you know how I feel about the dynamic in there. Ever since you signed the deed over to him, things have been weird. I sighed. We've been over this. I signed the house over 3 years ago for estate planning. To avoid probate taxes. It's still my home. David knows that. It was a formality. Formalities have a way of becoming realities in court, Marcus warned. I just don't like how comfortable Jessica is with calling the shots on the decor, the garden, everything. You built this place, Artie. They're young. I defended them. They want to make their mark. Once David is healthy, things will settle down. Marcus didn't look convinced, but he dropped it. Just protect yourself, okay? You're giving away an organ. Make sure you don't give away your dignity, too. The morning of the surgery was a blur of antiseptic smells and cold hospital gowns. I was wheeled into the pre-op holding area. David was in the bed next to me. He looked terrified. The IV lines were taped to his hands and his skin was ghostly pale. I reached across the gap between our gurneys and took his hand. It's going to be okay, son. We're doing this together. David squeezed back, his grip weak. I love you, Dad. Thank you. Seriously. Thank you. Jessica was there, dressed in a stylish matching sweatsuit, holding 2 Starbucks cups. She kissed David on the forehead, then gave me a quick peck on the cheek. You guys are brave. So brave. I'll be waiting right here when you wake up. Dr. Bennett came in, masked and ready. He put a hand on my shoulder. Ready, Arthur. Let's get it done, I said, as the anesthesia took hold. The last thing I saw was my son's face turned toward me. He looked like the little boy I used to carry on my shoulders. I closed my eyes, drifting into the black, secure in the knowledge that I was doing the single most important thing a father could do. I was giving him life again. I didn't know then that I was also giving him the strength to destroy me. Waking up from surgery at 63 is not like waking up from a nap. It feels like you've been hit by a freight train, reversed over, and then hit again. The first thing I was aware of was the thirst. My mouth felt like it was filled with sand. Then came the pain. It was a sharp, searing fire in my abdomen, radiating around to my back. I tried to groan, but my throat was too dry. Easy, Arthur, easy. It was a nurse. I blinked my eyes open, the bright fluorescent lights stinging. I was in the recovery room. David. I croaked. He's doing just fine, the nurse said, adjusting my IV drip. He's in the other recovery bay. His kidney, your kidney, started working right on the table. It's producing urine. That's a home run, Arthur. A wave of relief washed over me, momentarily dulling the pain. It worked. My boy was okay. I was moved to a private room a few hours later. The first 24 hours were a haze of morphine buttons and vitals checks. Dr. Bennett came in the next morning. He looked tired but pleased. You did good, Arthur, he said, checking my incision. What had to cut through quite a bit of muscle, so you're going to be sore for a long time. You need to take it easy. No lifting, no straining. Walking is good, but listen to your body. Can I see David? I asked. I'll have them wheel you over later today. When I finally saw my son, the transformation was miraculous. The gray pallor was gone, replaced by a flush of pink in his cheeks. He was sitting up in bed eating Jell-O. Jessica was sitting in the chair next to him, scrolling on her iPad. "Dad," David said, his voice stronger than it had been in months. "Look at me! Peed! I actually peed!" We laughed, although mine turned into a wince of pain. I wheezed. "That's great,
Son.
Jessica looked up, offering a tight smile. "You look rough, Arthur, or feels rough," I admitted, but it was worth it. Over the next 2 days, the dynamic in the hospital began to shift in a way I couldn't quite put my finger on. The nurses treated me like a hero. They brought me extra blankets, checked on my pain levels constantly, and praised my sacrifice. But in David's room, the atmosphere was different. David was recovering at lightning speed. He was young and with a fresh, functioning kidney. His body was bouncing back with a vengeance. I, on the other hand, was struggling. My digestion was slow to restart. The incision site was inflamed. I was groggy and needy. Whenever I visited David's room, Jessica seemed annoyed by my presence. "Can you not cough so loud?" she asked on the second day. "David is trying to rest." "I can't help it, Jess," I said, holding a pillow against my stomach to brace the shock waves. "It's the anesthesia clearing out of my lungs." "Well, maybe do it in your own room," she muttered, turning back to her phone. David didn't correct her. He just stared at the TV. "She's just stressed, Dad," he said dismissively. "Hospitals freak her out." On the third day, the discharge planning began. Bennett wanted to keep me 1 extra day for observation because my blood pressure was fluctuating, but David was cleared to go. "We're going to head out," David said, standing in my room dressed in his street clothes. He looked like a new man. He was vibrant. "I just want to get home and sleep in my own bed." "I understand," I said, feeling a pang of loneliness. "I'll be out tomorrow." "Yeah," David said, shifting his weight. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Listen, about getting home. Jessica isn't comfortable driving you. She says her anxiety is too high to handle a post-op passenger, and I can't drive yet, obviously." I blinked. "Oh, okay, I can call a cab, I guess. Or Marcus." "Marcus be better," Jessica interjected. "Because care for him. Chabs are dirty. You don't want an infection." "Right," I said. "I'll call Marcus." They left 10 minutes later. David gave me a quick, one-armed hug, careful of his own incision but seemingly indifferent to mine. "See you at home, Dad." That night in the hospital was the longest of my life. The nurses were kind, but the silence of the room amplified my doubts. Why did David seem so distant? Why did Jessica seem so hostile? I told myself it was just the stress of the surgery. Recovery changes people. Pain makes people selfish. Once we were all back under the roof I built, things would go back to normal. Marcus picked me up the next morning. He brought a pillow for me to put between my stomach and the seat belt. Something my own son hadn't thought to mention. "How are they?" Marcus asked as he navigated the rainy Seattle streets. "David is great," I said, watching the windshield wipers slap back and forth. He's practically glowing. "I feel like I've been gutted like a fish." Marcus grunted. "They call you check-in." I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. They're probably just settling in. It's a big adjustment. Hemif. Marcus grunted again. He didn't say anything else, but his grip on the steering wheel was tight. We pulled into the driveway of the house on Elm Street. It looked beautiful in the rain. The cedar siding I had installed 5 years ago had aged to a rich silver, gray. The porch light was on. It looked like a sanctuary. "Want me to come in?" Marcus asked. "No, I've got it," I said. "You've done enough. I just want to crash in my bed. Call me if you need anything, Artie. Seriously, anything." I got out of the car slowly, clutching my small bag of toiletries. The walk up the driveway felt like a marathon. Every step sent a jolt of pain through my side. I reached the front door and fumbled for my keys. I slid the key into the lock and turned. It didn't turn. I frowned. I jiggled it, pulled it out, and tried again. It wouldn't budge. It felt like the wrong key. But this was my key. It had been my key for 30 years. I rang the doorbell. I waited. Nothing. I rang again, leaning heavily against the doorframe. My legs were starting to tremble. I could hear movement inside. I knew they were there. Finally, the door opened. It wasn't fully open, just cracked a few inches. The security chain still engaged. Jessica's face appeared in the gap. "Oh," she said. "You're here." "The key didn't work," I said, confused. "Let me in, Jess. I'm freezing and I need to lie down." She didn't undo the chain. "David," she called out over her shoulder. "He's here." David appeared behind her. He was wearing a thick robe and holding a mug of tea. He looked warm. He looked comfortable. He looked at me through the crack in the door, and for the first time in my life, I looked at my son and didn't recognize him. His eyes were cold, devoid of the gratitude that had been there just days ago. "Hey, Dad," he said. "David, open the door." I said, "My patient's fraying." "Why is the chain on?" "Why doesn't my key work?" "We changed the locks yesterday," David said calmly. My brain couldn't process the words. You? What? Why? Jessica didn't feel safe with extra keys floating around. He said, reciting the line as if he had rehearsed it. Safe. I laughed, a dry, painful sound. It's my key. It's my house. David opened the damn door. We need to talk. Dad, David said. He still didn't undo the chain. Out there, on the porch. I am not having a conversation on the porch. I snapped. I just gave you a kidney. I have 30 staples in my stomach. Let me in my house. David sighed, looking at Jessica. She nodded at him, a sharp, commanding nod. David closed the door, undid the chain, and stepped out onto the porch. He pulled the door shut behind him, leaving Jessica inside. He stood there, arms crossed, blocking the entrance to the home I built. Dad, he started, his voice steady. We've been doing a lot of thinking. About the recovery process, about the future, and we don't think it's a good idea for you to stay here anymore. The world stopped. The rain kept falling, soaking through my thin jacket, but I couldn't feel it. All I could feel was the sudden, violent thumping of my heart against my ribs. What did you say? I whispered. It's about the environment, David said, talking faster now, his eyes fixed on a spot over my shoulder. Dr. Bennett said I need a stress-free, sterile environment. Jessica, she feels like having you here with your recovery needs. It's going to be too much pressure on us. We need to focus on my healing. I'm the recipient, Dad. My body could reject the organ at any moment. I gave you that organ, I shouted, the pain in my abdomen flaring. I gave it to you 3 days ago. You think I don't need to heal? Where do you expect me to go? You have savings, David said, his voice hardening. You can get a hotel or a small apartment. Honestly, Dad, this arrangement, it hasn't been working for a long time. Jessica feels suffocated. She wants to start our family, and having you in the guest room, it just doesn't work for our brand. For our life! I signed this house over to you to help you! I screamed. I built these walls. You stood right here 4 days ago and told me you'd take care of me forever. And I appreciate the kidney, Dad, I really do, David said, and the casual cruelty of it almost knocked me over. But the house is in my name. Legally, it's mine. Jessica and I have discussed it, and we want our privacy. We put your boxes in the garage. You can come get them when you have a truck. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. Here, this is $2,000. It should cover a motel for a few weeks until you figure something out. He tried to hand me the envelope. I stared at it. Then I slapped it out of his hand. The white envelope fluttered down into a puddle of rainwater. You are kicking me out, I choked out. Now, in the rain with staples in my gut. I'm asking you to leave, Dad, David said, stepping back toward the door. Please don't make a scene. The neighbors are watching. Let them watch. I roared. I lunged toward the door, instinct taking over. I wanted to get inside, to reclaim my sanctuary. David shoved me. It wasn't a punch, just a hard push to the chest. But in my weakened state, it was enough. I stumbled backward. My heel caught on the edge of the welcome mat, the one I had bought that said Home Sweet Home, and I fell. I landed hard on my backside on the wet concrete. A bolt of agony ripped through my incision site so intense that my vision went white. I gasped, clutching my stomach. I felt something warm and wet seeping through my shirt. The incision had opened. David looked down at me. For a split second I saw panic in his eyes. He took a half step forward, reaching out. Dad! Then the door opened behind him. Jessica stood there. David, get inside! If he's going to be violent, we're calling the police. David froze. He looked at me, groaning on the ground, bleeding. Then he looked at his wife. The choice was made in a heartbeat. You should go. Dad, David said softly. He turned around, walked inside, and slammed the heavy oak door. I heard the deadbolt slide home. I lay on the cold, wet concrete of the porch for what felt like an eternity. The rain was steady now, a relentless Pacific Northwest drizzle that soaked through my clothes and chilled me to the bone. But the cold was nothing compared to the fire in my side. I pulled my hand away from my stomach. It was covered in blood. The fall had definitely torn something, not fully open. My intestines weren't spilling out or anything horrific like that, but enough that the dressing was soaked and blood was mixing with the rainwater on the porch floor. He shoved me. The thought looped in my brain like a broken record. My son shoved me. I tried to sit up, using the porch railing for leverage. A groan escaped my lips, a guttural sound of pure misery. I looked at the door. Through the frosted glass insert, I could see the warm glow of the foyer light. I could imagine them inside. David probably drying off, Jessica telling him he did the right thing, that I was toxic, that they needed boundaries. David! I yelled, my voice weak. I'm bleeding! David, the porch light flicked off! That was their answer. Darkness. I knew I couldn't stay there. If I stayed, I would catch pneumonia or worse. I had to move, I had to think. But my brain was stuck in shock. This was the house where I had taught David to ride a bike in the driveway. This was the porch where we carved pumpkins every Halloween. How could this be the place where I became homeless? I fumbled for my phone in my wet pocket. My fingers were stiff and shaking uncontrollably. I dialed Marcus. Artie. Marcus answered on the first ring. You settling okay? You forget something in my car? Marcus, I wheezed. Come back. What's wrong? His voice instantly shifted from casual to alert. They locked me out. David, he shoved me. I'm bleeding, Marcus. I'm on the porch. I'm turning around. Marcus shouted, don't move. I'm 3 minutes away. Don't you dare move. Those 3 minutes were a blur of pain and sorrow. I stared at the envelope David had dropped. It was soaking wet, the ink probably running inside. $2,000. That was the price of a father's love. That was the exchange rate for a kidney. Headlights swept across the driveway. Marcus's old Ford truck roared up the incline, tires crunching on the gravel. He didn't even park properly. He just slammed it into park and jumped out, leaving the engine running. He ran up the steps, his face a mask of fury. When he saw me slumped against the railing, clutching my bloody side, he went pale. Oh my God, he whispered. He knelt beside me, disregarding the mud and blood. Let me see. He lifted my shirt gently. You've popped a couple of staples. You're bleeding pretty good. Artie, take me to the motel. I whispered. Just get me out of here. Motel? Marcus spat. I'm taking you to the ER, and then I'm kicking that door down and dragging that little ungrateful rat out by his ear. No. I grabbed his arm. No police. No scenes. Not yet. Please, Marcus. I can't handle it. Just take me away. Marcus looked at the door, his jaw working. I could see he wanted to pound on it. He wanted to scream. But he looked back at me, saw the desperation in my eyes, and nodded. Okay, let's get you up. He hoisted me up, taking most of my weight. I cried out as my abdominal muscles contracted, but we made it to the truck. He eased me into the passenger seat and buckled me in like a child. As we backed out of the driveway, I looked up at the second floor. The bay window of the master bedroom, David and Jessica's room, was illuminated. The curtains twitched. Someone was watching. I hope he rots, Marcus growled as we sped away. We went to the ER at St. Jude's, the same hospital I had been discharged from that morning. The triage nurse recognized me. Her confusion was evident. Mr. Miller, you were just discharged. What happened? I fell. I lied. I couldn't bring myself to say it. My son pushed me. It was too shameful. I slipped on the porch in the rain. Dr. Bennett wasn't on duty, but the resident who stitched me back up was competent. You tore the superficial layer, he explained. The internal sutures are holding, thank goodness. But you need to be extremely careful. No more falls. You need bed rest, Mr. Miller. Serious bed rest? He'll get it, Marcus said from the corner of the room. He's staying with me. No, I said from the bed. I can't impose Marcus. Your place is a one-bedroom walk-up. I can't climb those stairs, and I'm not taking your bed. You're not going to a motel. Marcus argued. There's a Motel 6 on the ground floor near the highway. I said stubbornly. I have money. I realized I had left the envelope in the puddle. I checked my wallet. I had my credit cards. I just need to be alone, Marcus. Please, I need to process this. Marcus argued for 10 minutes, but he knew when I dug my heels in. Eventually he agreed, on the condition that he would stay in the room with me for the first night. The motel room smelled of stale cigarettes and lemon cleaner. It was a stark contrast to the sterile, high-tech hospital room and a universe away from my beautiful home on Elm Street. I lay on the lumpy mattress, staring at the popcorn ceiling. Marcus sat in the wobbly chair by the window, reading a magazine, occasionally glancing at me to make sure I was still breathing. Why? I asked into the silence. Marcus put the magazine down. Because they're greedy, Artie. And because they're scared. Scared of what? Scared of the debt. Scared of the responsibility. David got his life back today. He got his get-out-of-jail-free card. And he realized that as long as you were there, he owed you. Not just money, but a life debt. He couldn't look at you without remembering that he was dying and you saved him. For a narcissist like Jessica and a weakling like David, that kind of debt is intolerable. So they erased the creditor. He's my son, I whispered, tears finally leaking out of the corners of my eyes. I changed his diapers. I paid for his college. I gave him my house. I gave him my kidney. And that's why this is going to destroy them, Marcus said darkly. Because you didn't just give him a kidney, Artie. You gave him a test. And he failed it. I closed my eyes, the pain medication pulling me under. But just before I drifted off, a memory sparked in my brain. It was from the day before the surgery. Dr. Bennett had come in with a clipboard. He had been talking about the risks, the procedures, and the paperwork. There was a form, a specific form regarding the donation. And there was something Dr. Bennett had said about the biological claim and revocability of consent up until the moment of anesthesia. But that wasn't it. It was something else. It was about the house. I opened my eyes, struggling against the drug haze. Marcus. Yeah. The deed. I mumbled. When I signed the deed over 3 years ago, yeah, I remember. I told you not to. Did we file the quitclaim with the county clerk? Marcus frowned. He was a paralegal. He remembered details like that. He rubbed his chin. You signed it. You gave it to David to file. He said he wanted to save the lawyer fees and do the filing himself. I stared at Marcus. David is lazy, Marcus. He procrastinates everything. Marcus's eyes widened. He sat up straight in the chair. If he never filed that deed, if it's sitting in a drawer somewhere covered in coffee stains, then the house is still mine? I whispered. Marcus stood up, a slow, predatory grin spreading across his face. Get some sleep, Arthur. Tomorrow we're going to the county recorder's office, and then we're going to call Dr. Bennett. Why Dr. Bennett? Because, Marcus said, I have a feeling there's a medical ethics clause about abusing a donor immediately after surgery, and I bet the hospital legal team would be very interested to hear about this. I closed my eyes again. The pain was still there, but for the first time since the porch, it was joined by something else. The sun rising over the Motel 6 parking lot didn't bring warmth. It just illuminated the grime on the window pane. I had slept in 20-minute intervals, woken each time by the throbbing ache in my side or the sound of trucks rumbling down the nearby highway. I lay there for a long time, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked vaguely like the state of Texas. My phone sat on the nightstand, a black rectangle of silence. I checked it again. No missed calls. No texts. Not from David. Not from Jessica. It had been 16 hours since I saved my son's life for the second time, and 12 hours since he had discarded me. Hunger gnawed at me, a hollow, nauseating emptiness. But the thought of food was repulsive. I needed to clean my wound. I needed fresh bandages. I needed to not be in a cheap motel room with a carpet that smelled of stale beer. I tried to sit up. It was a production. I had to roll onto my side, drop my legs off the edge of the bed, and use my arms to push my torso upright while keeping my abdominal muscles completely disengaged. It was a maneuver I had practiced in the hospital with the physical therapist, but doing it alone, on a soft mattress, was agony. A sharp hiss of breath escaped my teeth as the incision pulled. You up? The voice came from the connecting door. I hadn't realized Marcus had rented the room next door until he knocked softly. Yeah, I croaked. Marcus pushed the door open. He was wearing the same clothes as yesterday, rumpled and tired-looking. He held 2 coffees and a bag from a bakery. Breakfast of champions. Or at least, breakfast of the displaced. He set the coffee down and looked at me critically. You look like hell, Artie. I feel like I've been run over by a cement truck, I admitted, taking the coffee. The heat of the cup felt good against my cold hands. We have a busy day, Marcus said, pulling a chair up. I've been making calls since 6 a.m., but first we need to get you patched up properly. I'm taking you to a pharmacy to get high-grade waterproof bandages, and then we're going to the county recorder's office. The recorder's office. I took a sip of the coffee. It was bitter, but the caffeine hit my system like a jump start. You really think he didn't file the deed? David is a man who pays late fees on everything, Marcus said, taking a bite of a donut. He's a man who drives on expired tags until he gets a ticket. He's a man who assumes the world will wait for him. You signed that quitclaim deed 3 years ago. You handed it to him. Did you ever see a tax bill come in his name? I paused. The bills come to the house. I usually just put them on the counter for him. I never looked closely at the addressee. I just assumed. Assumption is the mother of all screw-ups, Marcus said. We're going to check. If that house is still in your name, Arthur, the game changes instantly. If it's not, well, then we move to Plan B. What's Plan B? Plan B is we sue him for unjust enrichment and elder abuse, but that takes time. Plan A is faster. Getting ready took an hour. I couldn't shower. The incision couldn't get soaked, so I did a sink bath with a washcloth, shivering in the cold bathroom air. When I looked in the mirror, I saw an old man. My skin was gray, my eyes sunken with dark circles, my hair a mess. I looked like a victim. I hated it. I splashed cold water on my face, gritting my teeth. You are a master carpenter, I told my reflection. You build things. You don't break. The ride to the county administration building was quiet. The rain had stopped, leaving Seattle scrubbed clean and gray. I watched the familiar streets pass by, streets I had driven for 40 years. I saw a park bench I had built for the city in the 90s. I saw a gazebo in a public garden I had restored. My mark was all over this town, yet I had nowhere to go. The county recorder's office was in the basement of the courthouse, a room filled with fluorescent light and the smell of old paper. It was quiet, save for the hum of a large copier and the tapping of a keyboard. We approached the counter. The clerk was a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain. "Help you?" she asked without looking up. "Yes," Marcus said, using his paralegal voice, firm, professional, authoritative. "We need to check the current deed status for a property. 452 Elm Street." The woman typed it in. "Owner name should be David Miller," I said softly. "Or Arthur Miller." She clicked her mouse a few times, squinting at the screen. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. "I have Arthur Miller listed as the primary owner," she said finally. My heart skipped a beat. Marcus gripped my elbow. "Is there any record of a transfer?" "A quitclaim deed filed in, say, 2023, Marcus asked. The clerk scrolled. "I see a submission for a transfer in, let's see, June of 2023. But it's flagged as rejected, incomplete." Rejected. I leaned over the counter, pain forgotten for a split second. "Why? Looks like a clerical error on the filing form," she said, bored. "Improper notary seal placement, and the transfer tax affidavit wasn't attached. We sent a notice of rejection to the applicant." "And was it ever resubmitted?" Marcus asked, his voice trembling with suppressed excitement. "Nope," she popped her gum. "Still sits as rejected. The legal title remains with the previous owner until a corrected deed is recorded." I slumped against the counter, not from weakness, but from the sheer weight of the revelation. The house was mine. It had always been mine. David had been living there, acting like the lord of the manor, kicking me out of my own home, and he didn't even own the walls he was standing between. "Can we get a certified copy of the current deed proving ownership?" Marcus asked. "Sure, $20. 10 minutes later we walked out into the cool air, holding a crisp piece of paper with the raised seal of the county. It was my deed. It was my shield. "He doesn't know," I whispered, staring at the paper. "He thinks he owns it. He thinks he's clever." Marcus corrected. "He got the letter saying it was rejected, threw it in a pile intending to fix it later, and forgot. And because you never pressed him, and you kept paying the utilities for a while, he never faced a consequence. His laziness just saved your ass, Artie." "So what do we do?" I asked. "Do I go back there? Kick the door down?" "No," Marcus said, his eyes narrowing. "Not yet. If you go back now, they'll call the cops. They'll claim you're trespassing, and even with this deed, the police won't intervene in a civil dispute on the spot. They'll tell you to take it to court, and David will have time to damage the house or steal your things." "Then what?" "We'll let him dig the hole deeper," Marcus said. "We need to make sure that when the hammer drops, it drops so hard he never gets up. We need to document the abuse. We need to make sure he can't claim tenants' rights or some other nonsense. We're going to see Dr. Bennett." I looked at Marcus. "Bennett? Why?" "Because you have an open wound that was caused by an assault," Marcus said grimly. "And doctors are mandatory reporters." We got back in the truck. My side was throbbing again, a reminder of the shove. But the pain felt different now. It wasn't just suffering, it was evidence. As we drove toward St. Jude's, my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. It was a notification from Facebook. "Jessica Miller tagged you in a post." My stomach churned. I opened the app. There was a photo of David, looking tragic and brave in his hospital bed from 3 days ago. Then a photo of him at home, resting on the couch with a sad expression. The caption read, "Whatever happens, we choose peace." It's so heartbreaking when family becomes toxic right when you need support the most. We are trying to heal in our sanctuary, but negative energy is a real threat to recovery. David is so strong, despite the stress being put on him by those who should know better. We had to make some hard boundaries today for our own mental health and safety. Sending love to everyone who supports our journey. Fed kidney transplant for survivor for toxic family for boundaries for new chapter. The post already had 40 likes. Comments were rolling in. "Oh no! What happened? Stay strong, Mama Bear!" "Protect your peace." Family can be the worst sometimes. Sending prayers. I read the words, and I felt a coldness settle over me that had nothing to do with the temperature. She was spinning it. She was painting me as the aggressor. She was telling the world that I was the toxic one, the threat to his recovery. "Look at this." I handed the phone to Marcus. He glanced at it while waiting at a red light. He laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Oh, she's good. She's really good. She's playing the victim card before you can even play the hand." People believe her. I said, watching the comments tick up. "They think I did something to him." "Let them talk," Marcus said. "Social media is a court of opinion. We're heading to a court of law. And trust me, judges don't give a damn about hashtags." But it hurt. It hurt deep in my chest, deeper than the surgeon's knife. I had given a part of my body to that boy. I had carved the banisters of that house, and now I was being erased, rewritten as a villain in the narrative of his life. Marcus, I said quietly, I don't just want the house back. I know, Marcus said softly. I want them to feel it. I want them to understand what they did. They will, Marcus promised. We're going to ensure they do. The waiting room at the transplant center was filled with people hoping for miracles. I sat in the corner, my hat pulled low, feeling like a ghost. I shouldn't be here. I should be in my recliner, watching old westerns, sipping warm broth while Jessica brought me pain meds. That was the script we had agreed on. When the nurse called my name, she looked surprised. Mr. Miller, you don't have an appointment until next week. I have an emergency, I said. I need to see Dr. Bennett. He's in surgery, but he has a break in 20 minutes. I can squeeze you in with the PA. No, Marcus stepped in. We need Bennett. It's regarding a post-surgical complication involving patient safety. The nurse saw the look on Marcus's face and the pallor of mine and nodded. I'll put you in exam room 3. Wait there. Exam room 3 was cold. I sat on the crinkly paper, staring at the anatomical chart of a kidney on the wall. It looked like a simple red bean, such a small thing to cause so much ruin. 20 minutes later, Dr. Bennett bustled in. He was still wearing his surgical cap. Arthur, what's going on? Is it the incision? Fever. Take off your shirt, Arthur, Marcus said. I slowly unbuttoned my flannel shirt and lifted the undershirt. The dressing was soaked through with fresh blood and serous fluid. Dr. Bennett hissed.
What happened? Did you fall?
I was pushed, I said, staring at the wall. Dr. Bennett froze. He looked from the wound to my face. Pushed? By who? My son, I said. The words tasted like ash. David shoved me yesterday, on the porch. Then he locked me out of the house. The silence in the room was absolute. Dr. Bennett carefully peeled back the dressing. He inspected the stitches. You've popped 3 staples. The fascia is intact, thank God, but the skin is separated. This needs to be cleaned and reclosed, and you're at high risk for infection. He began to work, his movements efficient but gentle. As he cleaned the wound with the iodine, his face grew redder and redder. He locked you out. Bennett asked, his voice tight, 3 days post-op. He said I was toxic to his recovery, I said. He said Jessica needed privacy. They put my things in the garage. Dr. Bennett stopped. He set the forceps down on the metal tray with a clang. This is unacceptable. I don't even have words. He looked at Marcus. Is he safe now? He's staying with me, Marcus said. But he's homeless, essentially. And we need this documented. Oh, it's documented, Bennett said, typing furiously into the computer terminal in the room. Patient presents with dehiscence of surgical wound secondary to physical trauma. Patient alleges assault by transplant recipient. Arthur, do you realize what this means for David? No, I said. What does it mean? Transplant medicine is built on a foundation of psychosocial support, Bennett explained, turning to face me. Before we list anyone, they have to prove they have a support system. They sign contracts, caregiver agreements. David signed a contract stating he had a safe home environment and that you were his primary support and donor. By evicting you and assaulting you, he has violated the terms of his post-transplant care compliance. Does that mean, can you take the kidney back? I asked, a dark, irrational thought crossing my mind. Bennett shook his head sadly. No, we can't undo the surgery, but I can flag him. I can report this to the ethics board. And more immediately, I can report this to Adult Protective Services. This is elder abuse, Arthur. Plain and simple. We want to report it, Marcus said. But we also need to know something. Who pays for his anti-rejection meds? Bennett blinked. His insurance, which if I recall from the social work intake was under a family plan or a business plan. His on my plan, I said. He's 34, but because he works, or worked, for my small carpentry LLC as a consultant to get coverage, he's on the company policy. I pay the premiums. Bennett's eyebrows shot up. You pay for his insurance?
Yes.
It's about $800 a month, and the anti-rejection meds, Bennett said slowly, cost about $2,100 a month without insurance. Marcus smiled. It was a shark smile. So, if Arthur were to, say, remove David from the company policy because David is no longer an employee or a dependent, then David would be uninsured. Bennett finished. He would have to apply for Medicare or Medicaid, but that takes time. Time he doesn't have. He needs those meds every single day. I don't want him to die, I said quickly. I just saved him. I don't want to kill him. You wouldn't be killing him, Bennett said, his voice hard. He is responsible for his own life now. But Arthur, listen to me. Stress is the #1 enemy of recovery. For you. You cannot be on the street. You cannot be fighting. If you cut his insurance, you are protecting your own financial assets, which you need for your own care. That is medically justifiable. He finished re-stapling my side. I am going to file a report with the police regarding the assault. I have to. It's the law. They will come to interview you. Tell them the truth. I will, I said. And Arthur, Bennett put a hand on my shoulder. I've been a transplant surgeon for 20 years. I've seen families fight. I've seen divorces. But I have never seen a recipient do this to a donor. It is the highest form of betrayal. Do not protect him. He didn't protect you. We left the hospital an hour later with a police report number and a fresh prescription for painkillers. You heard the doctor, Marcus said as we got into the truck. Insurance. That's the leverage. I can't just cut him off, I said, watching the rain start up again. If he misses a dose, though, he has $2,000, Marcus reminded me. The money he tried to pay you off with. He can buy a month's supply with that. He has money, Arthur. He just doesn't want to spend his money. He wants to spend yours. I looked at my phone. Another notification. This time, a text from Jessica. Dad, we saw you came by the house while we were out. The neighbors said a truck was there. Please don't stalk us. It's creepy. We're trying to heal. If you need your boxes, let us know and we will leave them on the curb. Do not come to the door. She was lying. We hadn't been to the house. She was just paranoid. Or maybe she was setting a trap, creating a paper trail of stalking, accusations. She's texting me, I said, reading it aloud. Marcus gripped the steering wheel. On the curb, like trash. Drive me to the bank, I said. My voice was steady now. The pain in my side was a dull thrum drowned out by the cold clarity of resolve. The bank. David has a company credit card for the LLC, I said. For business expenses. He buys lumber with it sometimes. Or gas. And I bet that's how Jessica is paying for all those aesthetic pillows and the organic food she's posting about, I said. If I'm not welcome in the house, then neither is my money. We drove to the bank. It was 3:00 p.m. I walked in, leaning on Marcus for support. The teller, Mrs. Gable, knew me. Mr. Miller, I haven't seen you in weeks. How are you? I've been better. Sarah, I said. I need to make some changes to the business accounts, of course. I need to cancel the secondary card issued to David Miller, effective immediately, and I need to remove him as an authorized signer on the checking account. Okay, she typed. Done. The card will be declined next time it's used. I hesitated. This was the big one. I need to look at the health insurance auto pay. It comes out of the business checking. Was Blue Cross, $1,600 a month. Cancel it, I said. Mrs. Gable paused. Cancel the insurance, Mr. Miller. Doesn't that cover you and your son? I'll set up a new individual policy for myself tomorrow, I said. But the group plan terminated. Today. Okay, she said, looking concerned but complying. It's done. I walked out of the bank feeling lighter. I had just severed the financial umbilical cord. No, Marcus said. We'll go back to my place. We eat decent food. You sleep for 12 hours. And tomorrow we serve the eviction notice. The next morning, I woke up feeling slightly more human. The sleep, combined with the painkillers, had taken the edge off the agony. But the emotional wound was festering. I sat at Marcus's small kitchen table, eating scrambled eggs. Marcus was on the phone with a friend of his, a process server named Big Tony. Yeah, personal service, Marcus was saying. Hand it to him. Or her. Don't just tape it. I want them to touch it. He hung up and turned to me. Tony is ready, but we need to draft the notice correctly. We aren't just evicting a tenant, Arthur. We are evicting a squatter who thinks he's an owner. Do we tell him I own the house? I asked. Not in the notice. Marcus smiled. The notice is just a notice to quit. It says you are hereby required to vacate the premises at 452 Elm Street immediately due to unauthorized occupancy and creation of a nuisance. It gives them 3 days. When they call screaming, and they will, that's when we drop the bomb. We spent the morning drafting the document. It was precise, cold, and legally watertight. We cited the lack of a lease agreement. We cited the nuisance, the assault on the owner. We cited the failure to pay rent. At noon, Big Tony came by. He was a large man who looked like he moved refrigerators for fun. He took the paperwork. You want a video? Please? Marcus said. We waited. The waiting was the hardest part. I paced Marcus's small living room, checking my phone every 5 minutes. Jessica had posted again. A picture of a smoothie, fueling my body while fighting negativity. At 1:30 p.m., Tony texted a video file. I clicked play. The video showed the front door of my house, the door I had built. Tony rang the doorbell. Jessica answered. She was wearing yoga pants and a crop top, holding a small dog I didn't recognize. They got a dog in my house? I'm allergic to dog. Can I help you? She asked, looking annoyed. Jessica Miller, Tony asked. Yes. And David Miller. As napping, who are you? I'm serving you legal documents, Tony said, thrusting the envelope at her. She recoiled. What? Is this from the hospital? It's from the owner of the property, Tony said. She laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. My husband is the owner. Take the papers, ma'am, Tony said, dropping them at her feet because she refused to touch them. You've been served. The video ended with her shouting, "You can't do this! I'm calling the police!" I watched it 3 times. She thinks it's a mistake, I said. She thinks I've gone senile or something. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was David. I stared at the screen. David Asone. I debated not answering. I wanted to let him sweat. But I also wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to hear the fear. I answered and put it on speaker. Dad. His voice was high, panicked. What the hell is this? Jessica just called me crying. Some guy threw papers at her. Hello, David, I said calmly. Why are you sending me an eviction notice? He shouted. Are you insane? You can't evict me from my own house! I have the deed! I have the title! Do you? I asked. Yes, you signed it over 3 years ago. Stop playing games, Dad. This is harassment. Jessica's freaking out. Her milk supply might dry up if she gets too stressed. I mean, if we had a baby, she would be... Look, just stop it! David, I said, cutting through his babble. Did you ever file the deed? Silence. What? The quitclaim deed, I said. Did you take it to the county recorder? Did you pay the transfer tax? Did you get the stamped copy back? Of course I did, he blustered. I did it. I don't know, a while ago. It's filed. No, it isn't, I said. I went to the recorder yesterday. They rejected it, David, 3 years ago. They sent you a letter. You never fixed it. You never resubmitted it. I could hear him breathing, short, sharp gasps. That's a clerical error, he stammered. It doesn't matter. The intent was there. We have a contract. A contract requires consideration, Marcus whispered to me, but I waved him off. The house is legally mine, David, I said. The title is in my name. You are a guest who assaulted his host, a guest who changed the locks on the owner. Dade, please, his voice cracked. The arrogance was evaporating, replaced by the whine of a child caught stealing cookies. You can't do this. I'm recovering. I have a new kidney. Stress can cause rejection. You should have thought about that before you shoved me into the rain, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. You should have thought about that before you told me I was toxic and threw me away like a used wrapper. It was Jessica, he cried. She made me do it. She said we needed space. Dad, you know how she gets? I just wanted to keep the peace. You threw your father out, I said. You chose her. Now live with her. Somewhere else. Where am I supposed to go? He sobbed. We don't have money for a deposit on a new place. All our cash is tied up in Jessica's business launch. You have $2,000, I said coldly. The envelope is still on the porch, unless the rain ruined it. Use that. Dad, wait, he screamed. The insurance. I went to the pharmacy an hour ago to get my prednisone. They said my coverage was terminated. They wanted $400 for the bottle. I can't afford that. You're not an employee of Miller Carpentry anymore, I said. Employees are people who work, or at least people who are loyal. You are neither. You're killing me, he shrieked. You're actually killing me. I gave you life twice, David. I said, tears streaming down my face now, unseen by him. I gave you my blood, my sweat, and my organ, and 3 days later you decided I wasn't worth a bedroom in a house I built. I'm not killing you. I'm just stopping saving you. I hung up. The room was silent. Marcus looked at me with respect and a little bit of fear. You okay? He asked. No, I said, putting the phone down. I feel terrible. That's the phantom limb pain? Marcus said. You cut off a dead limb. It hurts, but it was poisoning the rest of the body. What happens now? Now, Marcus said, we wait for the meltdown. Jessica isn't going to go quietly. She's going to escalate. He was right. An hour later, my phone blew up. Not with calls, but with notifications. Jessica Miller is live on Instagram. Turn it on, Marcus said. I opened the app. Jessica was sitting in my kitchen, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. The lighting was carefully arranged to make her look angelic and distressed. Guys, she sniffled into the camera. I don't even know how to say this. We are being abused. Literally abused. David's father, the man we trusted, he has gone crazy. He's threatening to kick us out on the street. He cut off David's life, saving medication. He's trying to kill his own son for money. She held up the eviction notice. He's a monster, she sobbed. He gave the kidney just to hold it over our heads. It was all a power trip. And now that he has the control, he's destroying us. We need help. We need a lawyer. Please, if anyone knows a lawyer who fights elder bullies, DM me. We are terrified. The comments were flying by. Gee, this is horrific. Call the police. Start a GoFundMe. We will support you. What a psycho dad. I stared at the screen, watching the lies spread like a virus. Millions of pixels forming a picture of me that was a monster. She's winning the crowd, I whispered. Let her, Marcus said, his eyes glued to the screen. She just admitted on a live broadcast that you cut the insurance and served eviction. She acknowledged receipt. And more importantly, he pointed to the background of the video. Look at the counter behind her. I squinted. There, on the granite island I had installed, was a pile of papers, and on top of the pile was a distinct blue folder. That's my medical file, I said. From the hospital. I left it on the kitchen table when I went to the hospital for the surgery. And next to it, Marcus asked. Next to it was a credit card, the company card I had canceled, and a laptop screen showing an Amazon shopping cart. She's using the company card, Marcus said. Or trying to. But that's not the point. She's filming inside your house, slandering the legal owner, while soliciting money based on lies. This isn't just a tenant dispute anymore, Arthur. What is it? It's fraud, Marcus said, and defamation, and we're going to record every second of this broadcast. I watched as Jessica wiped a tear. We just wanted a family, she whispered. And he ruined it. I turned off the phone. Get the car. Marcus? I said.
Where are we going? To the house?
I said. I'm done hiding in a motel. I have the deed. I have the police report. I have the eviction notice. I'm going home. Arthur, that's dangerous. The police might let them come, I said, standing up. The pain in my side was gone, replaced by a cold, hard iron in my spine. I built that door. I have the key. And I'm going to walk through it. The drive to Elm Street felt like a funeral procession, but instead of mourning a death, I was mourning the living. The rain had stopped, leaving the sky a bruised purple as twilight set in. Marcus drove in silence, his jaw set hard. I sat in the passenger seat, clutching the certified copy of the deed in one hand and my cane in the other. I didn't need the cane for walking as much as I needed it for a weapon. Not to strike, but to signal. To signal that I was broken, and they were the breakers. We pulled up to the curb. The house was blazing with light. Every window was illuminated. It looked like a party was happening inside. In the driveway, a strange car was parked, a sleek, white SUV with a realtor magnet on the side. They're showing the house. I whispered, a fresh spike of adrenaline hitting my system. Or getting an appraisal, Marcus growled. She thinks she owns it. She's probably trying to leverage the equity for a loan. I opened the truck door. Let's go. We walked up the driveway. I didn't go to the front door this time. I went to the garage. I punched in the code on the keypad. My birthday. The door groaned and began to roll up. They didn't change the garage code, Marcus noted dryly. Amateurs. Inside the garage was a disaster. My tools, thousands of dollars worth of saws, drills, and sanders, were shoved into a corner, piled haphazardly. In their place were boxes of inventory for Jessica's influencer business, cheap ring lights, boxes of protein powder, and racks of clothes. I walked through the garage to the interior door. I tried the handle. Locked. I took a deep breath, raised my cane, and hammered on the door 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. Opened the door. David! I bellowed.
It's the landlord!
Silence from the other side. Then the sound of scrambling footsteps.
Go away!
Jessica's voice screeched through the wood.
We called the police!
They're on their way.
Gah!
I shouted back. Save me the trouble. I turned to Marcus. The front door. The key didn't work, but the deadbolt do. I have a drill, Marcus said, pulling a cordless DeWalt from my own pile of tools in the corner. And I know how to use it. We walked around to the front porch, the scene of the crime. The bloodstain from my fall had been washed away by the rain, but the phantom pain in my side flared up as I stepped onto the concrete. Marcus put the drill to the lock.
Hey!
A voice called from the street. I turned. A police cruiser had pulled up, lights flashing but no siren. 2 officers stepped out. One was a young rookie looking nervous. The other was an older sergeant, a man I recognized from the local diner. Sergeant Miller. No relation, but we had shared coffee a few times. Arthur. Sergeant Miller squinted as he walked up the path. What the hell is going on? We got a call about a break-in. An intruder threatening a recovering patient. I'm the intruder. Apparently, I said, leaning on my cane. And the recovering patient is the son who threw me off this porch 3 days ago. The front door flew open. Jessica stood there, phone in hand, recording. David was behind her, looking pale and terrified.
Officer!
Arrest him! Jessica screamed, pointing the camera at me.
He's violating our boundaries! He's stalking us! He cut off our insurance!
He's trying to kill my husband! Sergeant Miller held up a hand. Mom, put the phone down, everyone take a breath. He turned to me. Arthur, you don't live here anymore. The dispatch said you were evicted. I was never evicted. I said, my voice steady though my hands were shaking. I was locked out, illegally. This is my house, Sergeant. I built it. I pay the taxes, and I have the deed right here. I handed the paper to him. Jessica laughed, a shrill, hysterical sound.
That's a lie! David owns it! He signed it over 3 years ago!
We have the paperwork inside. Go get it then. Marcus challenged her. David, go get the deed, Jessica commanded. David didn't move. He was staring at the certified copy in Sergeant Miller's hand. He looked like he was about to vomit. David, Jessica snapped. I can't find it, David whispered. What do you mean you can't find it? The county sent it back. David mumbled, his voice barely audible. There was a mistake. I meant to fix it. I just forgot. The silence on the porch was deafening. Jessica slowly lowered her phone. She turned to look at her husband. The look on her face wasn't love. It was pure, unadulterated calculation. She was doing the math and coming up with 0. You never filed it, she hissed.
It's a technicality,
David pleaded, looking at the police.
The intent was there. It's our marital home.
We have rights. Sergeant Miller handed the deed back to me. He looked at David with a mixture of pity and disgust. Son, in the eyes of the law, a technicality regarding a deed is the difference between owning a house and trespassing. If this man is the legal owner and you have no lease, he has every right to be here.
But he assaulted us.
Jessica pivoted instantly.
He was banging on the door. We felt threatened.
I have a police report from yesterday, I said, pulling out the second piece of paper, documenting the assault on me by him, which resulted in my surgical incision bursting open. Dr. Bennett at St. Jude's filed it. Sergeant Miller looked at the report. He looked at David. You shoved your father, the man who just gave you a kidney. David looked down at his feet. It was an accident. He fell. He fell because you pushed him, I said. And then you left me in the rain. Okay. Sergeant Miller said, his tone shifting from mediator to authority figure. Here is how this is going to go. Arthur, this is your house. You have the right to enter. David, Jessica, you are technically residents until a court says otherwise, but given the volatile nature of this dispute and the allegations of elder abuse, I am going to suggest one of 2 things happens right now. He paused, looking at Jessica. Option A, Z. You allow Arthur into his home, you stay in your room, and we keep a squad car out front all night to ensure peace until the civil courts handle the eviction. Option B, Z. One of you leaves voluntarily to cool off.
I'm not leaving, Jessica shouted. This is my house. I have rights. I have a following. And I have a master key, Marcus said, stepping forward.
He had drilled the lock while we were talking. The door swung open with a click. I stepped across the threshold. The smell hit me first. It didn't smell like my house anymore. It smelled of some cloying, artificial vanilla scent. Candles, probably masking the smell of dog. I walked into the foyer. My antique grandfather clock was gone. In its place was a large, gold-framed mirror that looked like it belonged in a Las Vegas hotel lobby. Where is my clock? I asked, turning to David. We put it in storage. David stammered. It didn't fit the aesthetic. You sold it, I said, a cold certainty washing over me. Didn't you? David didn't answer. I walked into the living room. My leather recliner was gone. The oak bookshelves I had built by hand were painted white. A sloppy, thick coat of white paint that dripped down the sides. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. They hadn't just taken the house. They had erased me from it. You painted over solid oak, I whispered.
It brightens the room, Jessica said defensively, following us in. It's farmhouse chic.
It's vandalism, Marcus said. I turned to Sergeant Miller. I want them out, now. I don't feel safe with them here. They sold my property. They damaged the structure. That goes beyond tenancy. That's criminal mischief. It's a civil matter, Miller sighed. Arthur, I can't kick them out tonight without a court order. The eviction notice gives them 3 days. You have to wait out the clock. 3 days? I said, staring at David. Fine. You have 48 hours left.
We're not going anywhere, Jessica screamed. We have squatters' rights. We'll fight this for months. You'll be dead before we leave.
That was the breaking point. I looked at David. He was standing by the fireplace, letting his wife scream at his father. The father who is currently bleeding into a bandage because of him. David, I said quietly. He looked up. Do you love her? I asked, pointing at Jessica. What? Do you love her enough to go to prison for her?
Prison, Jessica scoffed. For what? Being a girl boss?
For fraud, I said. And embezzlement. I pulled out my phone. I opened the banking app for the LLC. I saw your live stream, Jessica, I said. I saw the company credit card on the counter, the one issued to David for lumber and gas. I pulled the statements this afternoon while we were waiting.
I scrolled through the list.
Set 400. Lululemon 300. Delta Airlines has run 200 of ticket for your mother. Whole Foods 800. The total is over $15,000 in the last 4 months. Jessica went pale. The phone in her hand lowered. That card is for a limited liability company. Marcus explained. stepping in like the shark he was. Misappropriating corporate funds for personal use is piercing the corporate veil. But more simply, it's theft. Grand larceny actually, given the amount. Arthur is the sole owner of the LLC. David is an unauthorized user for these types of purchases.
David said it was fine.
Jessica shrieked, throwing her husband under the bus instantly.
He said it was part of his compensation package.
I thought David stammered. I'm filing charges, I said. Tomorrow morning? Unless what? David asked, his voice trembling. Unless you are gone by noon tomorrow, I said. Both of you, and the dog. And the aesthetic. If the house is empty and the keys are on the counter by 1200 p.m., I won't file the police report for the theft. I'll eat the 15 grand as the cost of getting rid of a mistake.
You can't be serious,
Jessica said. You'd send your son to jail. He sent me to the hospital, I said cold. Fair trade. I looked at Sergeant Miller. Officer, I'm going to stay at my friend's house tonight. I don't want to be around these people. But I will be back tomorrow at noon. If they are still here, I'd like you to be present to take the report for the theft. Miller nodded, tipping his cap. I'll be here, Arthur. Noon. We walked out. I didn't look back. I heard Jessica screaming at David before the door even closed.
You idiot! You said the deed was filed! You said the card was safe!
You've ruined everything. I leaned heavily on Marcus as we walked back to the truck. You think they'll go? Marcus asked. Jessica will go, I said. She's a survivor. She'll realize the money tap is dry and the legal threat is real. She'll cut her losses. And David, I sighed, looking at the dark sky. David has to decide if he wants to be a man, or just an accessory to a crime. A noon the next day was overcast, a fitting backdrop for the end of an era. I didn't sleep the night before. I lay in Marcus's guest bed, thinking about the treehouse I had promised to build for the grandchildren who would never visit. I thought about the kidney inside David's body, filtering his blood, keeping him alive so he could betray me. It was a strange, intimate violation. We arrived at Elm Street at 11:55 a.m. Sergeant Miller was already there, leaning against his cruiser, arms crossed. Quiet morning. Miller said as we approached, saw a moving truck leave about an hour ago, big one, driven by the wife. She left. I asked, hope and sorrow warring in my chest. She peeled out of here like the devil was chasing her, Miller said. Flip me the bird on the way out. And David. His car is still here. We walked to the door. It was unlocked. I pushed it open. The house echoed. It wasn't just empty, it was gutted. The farmhouse chick furniture was gone, which was a blessing, but so was everything else. The curtains were gone. The light fixtures, the original brass ones I had restored, were gone, leaving bare wires hanging from the ceiling. They had taken the appliances. The refrigerator, the washer, the dryer. They stripped it. Marcus said, looking around the barren living room, petty, spiteful. I walked into the kitchen. On the granite island, the only thing too heavy for them to steal, sat a single object, my coffee mug. The one that said World's Okayest Carpenter. It was chipped. And sitting on a stool in the corner, head in his hands, was David. He looked small. The vibrancy he had in the hospital was gone. He looked sick again, though I knew his blood work was fine. It was a sickness of the soul. He looked up when he heard my cane tap on the floor. His eyes were red-rimmed. She took the dog, he said, his voice hollow. And the TV, and the car. The car is in her name, I asked. No, it's in mine. But she took the keys. She said she needed it for her brand. She said she's her mom's in Oregon. He let out a dry, hacking laugh. She blocked me, Dad. On Instagram. On Facebook. On her phone. She left me less than 24 hours after the money stopped. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, looking at the man I had raised. I'm sorry, David whispered. He slid off the stool and fell to his knees. It was a theatrical gesture, but for the first time in years it felt genuine. Dad, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I wanted to make her happy. She was never happy. Nothing was ever enough. And throwing me out was going to make her happy. I asked softly. She said you were holding us back. She said, God, I'm so stupid. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Can you forgive me? Can I stay? Just until I get back on my feet. I'll sleep in the garage. I'll fix the bookshelves. I'll pay you back every cent. I looked at him. I looked at the scar on my abdomen hidden beneath my shirt, throbbing in sympathy with his grief. Part of me, the father part, wanted to say yes, wanted to hug him, tell him it was okay, that we would fix it. But then I remembered the rain. I remembered the cold concrete of the porch. I remembered the sensation of his hands on my chest, shoving me away when I was most vulnerable. Trust is like a mirror. You can fix it if it's broken, but you can still see the crack in that motherfucker's reflection. And this mirror was shattered. No, David, I said. David froze. What? You can't stay? I said. You have to go.
But I have nowhere to go. She took everything. I don't have a job. I don't have insurance.
You have a working kidney, I said. That's more than you had a week ago. That's the last gift I will ever give you.
Dad, please! You can't kick me out. I'm your son.
And I'm your father, I said, my voice cracking. And because I'm your father, I have to teach you the hardest lesson of your life. Actions have consequences. You bet your life on a woman who didn't love you, and you wagered your father to do it. You lost the bet. You don't get a refund. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a card. It was for a local shelter and job placement center. Marcus found this for you. It's a clean place. They help people start over. David stared at the card. You're sending me to a shelter. I'm sending you into the world, I said. I'll reinstate your health insurance for 3 months, just 3, to make sure the kidney sticks. After that, you are on your own. Figure it out. David stood up slowly. He looked at me, searching for a crack in my armor, a sign of weakness. He found none. He found only the resolve of a master carpenter who knows that sometimes you have to tear a structure down to the studs to save the foundation. I hate you, he whispered. It wasn't screamed. It was just a statement of fact. I know, I said, but I love you enough to let you hate me if it means you finally grow up. He walked past me, grabbing a duffel bag from the floor, the only thing he had left. He walked out the front door, past Sergeant Miller, and down the driveway. He didn't look back. I watched him go until he turned the corner. Then, and only then, did I let myself collapse onto the stool. Epilogue 6 months later, the house is quiet now. It took me 3 months to fix the damage. I sanded down the white paint on the bookshelves, revealing the honey, gold oak underneath. It took hours of tedious hand sanding, but it was therapeutic. With every layer of paint I removed, I felt like I was scrubbing away the toxicity of the last few years. I bought a new recliner. It's ugly as sin, brown and lumpy, but it's comfortable. And it's mine. Marcus comes over for dinner every Tuesday. We eat steak and drink cheap beer and don't talk about David. David is existing. I know this because the insurance statements still come to the house, although I'm canceling the policy next month, as promised. He's using it. He's alive. I heard through the grapevine that he's working at a hardware store in Tacoma, living in a studio apartment. He hasn't called. I haven't called him. Jessica is gone. Her brand collapsed after I posted the video of the eviction and the police report on my own Facebook page. It turns out the internet loves a villain, but they hate a fraud even more. She tried to pivot to victim of domestic abuse, but the receipts, the credit card statements, the deed, the police report were too damning. She deleted her accounts and vanished. I sit on my porch in the evenings now. I watch the sun go down. I touch the scar on my side. It's faded to a silvery line. It aches when it rains, a constant reminder of what I gave. I lost a kidney. I lost my son. But as I look around this house, my sanctuary, I realize I kept the most important thing. I kept my self-respect. And sometimes that has to be enough. Morale less so. This story is a brutal examination of what happens when entitlement meets sacrifice. Arthur made the ultimate parental sacrifice, giving a vital organ to save his child. In a healthy relationship, this would be the bond that seals a family together forever. But in the case of David and Jessica, it was viewed merely as a transaction. David viewed the kidney not as a gift, but as a reset button for his life, one that entitled him to discard the donor once the service was rendered. The antagonist, Jessica, represents the modern evil of superficiality, valuing aesthetics, and social media cloud over human connection. David, however, is the truer villain. He is the weak enabler. He allowed his wife to dictate the terms of his relationship with the man who saved his life. His mistake was believing that he could inherit the rewards of adulthood, the house, the authority without earning them or respecting the source. Justice was served not through revenge, but through the rigorous application of boundaries. Arthur didn't destroy David. He simply removed the safety net that David had been abusing. By enforcing the legal reality of the deed and the financial reality of the business, Arthur forced David to face the world as it truly is, a place where you get what you earn, not what you take. The moral message, the lesson here is harsh but necessary. Do not set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially if they are the ones holding the matches. As parents, partners, or friends, we often think that unlimited giving is the highest form of love. We think that if we just give one more thing, money, a house, a kidney, the other person will finally appreciate us. But to a toxic person, your sacrifice isn't a gift, it's a supply. And when the supply runs out, so does their use for you. Arthur's victory came when he realized that no is a complete sentence. He learned that protecting his own dignity was more important than protecting his son's feelings. Closing: if you are in a situation where you are constantly giving and receiving nothing but disrespect in return, take a page from Arthur's book. Check your deeds, literal and metaphorical. Make sure you own your own life. Don't let anyone lock you out of your own happiness. Be kind, be generous, but never, ever let anyone treat you like an option in a life you helped build. Stay strong, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next story.